Indoctrination that ends with liberty and justice for all. We want to put flesh to it. We want to make it real. And the only way we're going to do that is that we stand up and we push back. So everyone that's here, if you're not a part of either the email network of the Peace and Justice Foundation or the International Action Center or one of the other organizations that's present, make sure we get your email address so that we can keep you in the loop. And we must encourage you to go back with the intent of you personally bringing at least 10 other folk with you next month when we meet again. At least 10 other people with you. We want to multiply the numbers as much as we can. And also Muslims, if those of us who belong to a center or a mosque, a masjid in the city, or in New Jersey, or in Connecticut, or anywhere else, let us exert pressure on our leaders. Our leaders must be examples of what Iman is all about. The Prophet, peace be upon him, he said, when you see an evil action, you must change it with your hand. If you cannot do so with your tongue, if you cannot do so, detest it within your heart, and that is the weakest degree of faith. We have it within America to change, to bring about change, at least with our tongue, the jihad of the tongue. But we can't do it if we're afraid. Our Prophet also said one of the best jihads is to speak truth to a governing authority that is deviated from the right way. I want to end with two observations by two leaders, one Muslim, one non-Muslim, that have passed on a long time ago. One is one of the scholars of the Islamic tradition. His name was Sheikh Ibn Taymiyyah. He said something a few centuries past that is very relevant to this day. He says civilization is based on justice, and the consequences of oppression is devastating. Therefore, it is said, Allah aids the just state, even if it is non-Muslim, yet withholds his help from the oppressive state, even if it is Muslim. Thomas Jefferson, one of the founding fathers of this so-called republic, the third of the United States, the man who was given credit for writing most of the Declaration of Independence, but a leader who was also himself a contradiction. Because as he wrote those wonderful words, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, among these life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those words were only meant to signify the wealthy white men, primarily. And white women were completely out of the equation. And Africans of people of African descent at that time were just still thought of as 3/5 of human beings. And Jefferson was one of those founding fathers that even on his deathbed still had slaves.
And hundreds of them.
So he was a contradiction in and of himself. But even among those of us who have contradictions, there are good things. There are good things. There is some good in the worst of us, and there is some evil in the best among us. And one of the good things that Jefferson said, if you ever visit Washington, D.C., and you visit the Jefferson Memorial, you walk up into that memorial, inscribed in the walls are his writings. And in one of those writings, he wrote, I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just. His justice cannot sleep forever. What we say to America, what we say to the executive branch, to the legislative branch, to the judicial branch, what we say to our fellow Americans is that God don't like ugly. What we're doing is terrible. What we're doing through our domestic policy is terrible. What we're doing through our foreign policy is terrible. I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just. His justice cannot sleep forever. Let us wake up to the reality of those words and do what we can to make this country a better nation that lives up to the promise, at least strives to live up to the promise of liberty and justice for all. I want to thank you for being here. May God bless us and preserve us in all of our endeavors of good. We thank the International Action Center. We thank the families who traveled near and far. We thank you for being here. Let us look forward to next month, and let us fill up this square. If not this square, if it's not going to be here, whatever the space is in New York City, let's just fill it up. Next month, and then in the month of July, we're going to take it to Washington, D.C., to the U.S. Department of Justice. We want to flood the street in front of the Justice Department all the way up to 14th Street, where Freedom Plaza is located. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.